The loudest sound on a running track is not the cheering crowd. It is the silent crack of a broken dream. Caleb stood in the locker room, holding his plastic water bottle. He was the golden boy of the nation. His father was the famous head coach of the team. Everyone expected Caleb to easily win the 400-meter final today. Damon, his best friend and loyal training partner, stood right beside him. They always did their special pre-race routine. They tapped their water bottles together for good luck. Caleb smiled warmly. He completely trusted Damon with his own life. But Caleb did not know the dark truth hiding behind Damon's nervous, sweaty smile. Damon was not jealous of Caleb's amazing speed. Damon was absolutely terrified for his own life. He had secretly built a massive gambling debt. The dangerous men from the illegal betting world had finally threatened his family. The violent mobsters told Damon he must win the gold medal today. If Caleb crossed the finish line first, Damon would be killed. The stadium crowd was cheering loudly outside. Caleb closed his eyes to pray for a good, safe race. In that short moment, Damon's shaking hand moved incredibly fast. Damon held a small, clear capsule between his fingers. He dropped the tiny pill directly into Caleb's open water bottle. It dissolved instantly into the clear liquid without any color or smell. It was not a magical drug designed to make Caleb run faster. It was a dark, dangerous chemical weapon. The drug was designed to cause a sudden, massive heart failure when the runner's body reached maximum speed. It was a silent killer. Even worse, if hospital doctors tested the blood later, the chemical would perfectly mimic illegal sports doping. The victim would die in total shame and terrible public disgrace. "Good luck out there, brother," Damon whispered, his voice shaking slightly. Caleb drank deeply from the poison bottle, feeling strong and ready to win. The cold water felt refreshing in his dry, nervous throat. He patted Damon on the shoulder and walked proudly out into the bright, flashing stadium lights. The massive crowd screamed Caleb's famous name. He took his position on the starting blocks. He felt a strange, unusually fast heartbeat in his chest, but he ignored it. He thought it was just the normal excitement of the grand final. He looked down the red track, focusing his eyes. He was ready to make his proud father happy and win the golden ticket to the Olympics. The official referee raised the starting gun high into the bright blue sky. The entire stadium went completely silent. Caleb took a deep breath. The dark poison was already pumping through his young veins. The starting gun fired. Caleb exploded from the blocks like a rocket. The wind rushed past his face. He quickly took the lead, leaving the other runners far behind. The crowd roared his name. But at the final curve, something went terribly wrong inside his strong chest. A sudden, sharp pain hit Caleb's heart like a heavy hammer. His vision turned blurry and dark. His legs suddenly felt like heavy lead. Just 10 meters away from the glorious finish line, Caleb gasped for air. His body completely shut down. He crashed violently onto the hard red track. Caleb rolled in pain, grabbing his chest. The crowd gasped in pure shock. Damon sprinted past him, crossing the finish line to win the gold medal. Medical teams rushed to Caleb, putting him on a stretcher. They saved his life, but the real nightmare was just beginning in the hospital room. 2 days later, a serious man from the sports committee walked into Caleb's room. The official held a white paper. Your blood test is positive for synthetic doping, the man said coldly. Caleb could not believe his ears. That is impossible. I never cheat. Caleb cried from his hospital bed. The official offered a dirty deal. If you confess to using drugs, we will only ban you for 1 year, he explained smoothly. If you deny it, we will ban you for 3 long years. Caleb was an honest man with a pure heart. He loudly refused to tell a lie. I am completely innocent, Caleb shouted. The committee immediately banned him from all sports for 3 years. He lost his medals, his sponsors, and his bright future. But he still hoped his father would protect him. He believed his father would help him find the real truth and clear his name. He turned on the television in his hospital room. His famous father was holding a live, national press conference. Caleb smiled, waiting for his father to defend him. But the head coach looked at the cameras with a face full of fake sadness and deep, public disappointment. I am deeply ashamed of my son, Caleb's father said clearly. He cheated the sport. I searched his room today. The coach lifted a small, black plastic box for all the reporters to see. I found these illegal drugs hidden in his closet. I am giving this evidence to the police. Caleb's heart broke into 1,000,000 tiny pieces. The box was completely fake. His own father had planted the illegal drugs in his room to save his prestigious coaching job. His father had publicly abandoned him to protect his own shiny reputation. Caleb was entirely alone in a cruel, dark world. 3 long, bitter years passed slowly. The golden boy of track and field was completely forgotten. Caleb now lived in a tiny, dirty room in the poorest part of the city. He wore torn clothes and heavy boots. He worked as a common laborer at a massive, noisy construction site. Every day, under the burning sun, Caleb carried heavy steel beams on his shoulders. His hands were covered in thick, painful scars. He did not speak to anyone. The other workers thought he was just a quiet, broken man. They did not know the raging fire burning deep inside his soul. The giant construction site was not just any normal building. It was the brand new National Olympic Stadium. It was the exact place where the national qualifiers would happen next month. Caleb was secretly building the glorious stage for his worst enemy. Damon was now the wealthy king of the sport. Damon's smiling face was on giant billboards all around the dusty construction site. Every time Caleb looked up, he saw the man who had stolen his entire life. But Caleb did not cry or complain. He used his deep, burning anger as endless fuel for his secret, nightly mission. When the sun went down and the other workers went home to sleep, Caleb stayed behind in the dark. He did not go to a fancy, air-conditioned gym. He used the brutal, dangerous construction site as his personal training ground. He was preparing for a glorious, impossible return. Caleb found heavy cement blocks and tied them tightly to his waist with thick, rough ropes. He stood at the bottom of the dark, unfinished concrete stairs. He looked up at the 30 floors of empty, cold building. He took a deep breath of the dusty night air and started running. He sprinted up the steep concrete stairs with explosive, terrifying power. The heavy cement blocks dragged behind him, scraping loudly against the stone. His muscles burned with intense pain, but he refused to stop. He pushed his body far beyond the normal limits of human endurance and speed. He was not practicing the graceful, light movements of professional running anymore. He was forging a new kind of brutal, primal strength. His legs were no longer built for soft, bouncy rubber tracks. They were forged in the heavy dirt and solid rock of the dark construction site. Night after night, in complete silence, Caleb transformed his broken body into an unstoppable machine. He ran until his feet bled in his old boots. He was waiting patiently in the dark shadows. His 3-year ban was ending very soon. The world was about to meet a terrifying new monster. The bright stadium was packed with thousands of excited fans. The elite runners walked onto the track wearing expensive, shiny running shoes and custom aerodynamic suits. Then, Caleb stepped out of the dark tunnel. The entire stadium suddenly erupted into loud laughter and cruel, mocking jokes. Caleb was not wearing a fancy uniform. He wore a cheap, faded gray t-shirt and his old, heavy construction pants. Worst of all, he was wearing a pair of torn, heavy leather work boots. He looked like a homeless man wandering onto a professional sports field. The crowd booed loudly. Damon stood nearby, watching Caleb with a nervous, pale face. Damon wore the national champion uniform. He laughed with the other runners, but his eyes were filled with secret fear. Caleb ignored the cruel noise. He slowly walked to his starting block and crouched down, touching the red track. The referee raised the starting gun. The loud laughter slowly faded into tense silence. Ready, set, the gun fired with a sharp crack. While the other runners pushed off the blocks with smooth, graceful jumps, Caleb exploded forward with a violent, terrifying burst of raw, brutal power. Caleb did not glide over the track like a normal athlete. His running style was completely different now. Every time his heavy boots hit the ground, it sounded like a hammer striking solid concrete. He ran with a heavy, aggressive force that seemed to violently crush the red rubber track. The crowd stopped laughing instantly. Their mouths dropped open in pure shock. Caleb was moving at an impossible, terrifying speed. His powerful legs tore through the wind. He left the elite runners far behind in the first 100 meters. He was not racing them. He was simply destroying them completely. Caleb crossed the finish line a full 3 seconds before the second-place runner. In the fast world of sprinting, 3 seconds was a massive, humiliating lifetime. The stadium was completely silent. Nobody clapped. They were too scared of the angry, silent monster standing calmly at the finish line. After the race, the official sports doctor called Caleb into the medical tent for a mandatory physical check. The doctor touched Caleb's legs and gasped loudly. "This is impossible," the doctor whispered. "Your muscle density is completely abnormal. It feels like thick, cold steel under your skin." The doctor looked at the officials with wide, terrified eyes. "No laboratory drug in the world can build this kind of dense, solid muscle," the doctor reported honestly. "He is completely clean. He just trained in a way that normal humans cannot survive." The monster was officially cleared to race. It was the dark, quiet night before the grand final. Caleb sat alone in his cheap, small motel room, staring at the wall. Suddenly, he heard a soft knock at the door. He opened it slowly. Damon stood in the dark hallway, shaking nervously and looking completely exhausted. Damon pushed his way inside and quickly locked the door behind him. The famous champion looked terrible. His eyes were red from crying, and his expensive clothes were messy. Damon suddenly dropped to his knees on the dirty floor. He began to sob uncontrollably, burying his face in his hands. "I am so sorry, Caleb," Damon cried loudly. "I poisoned your water 3 years ago. I put the pill in your bottle. I ruined your life, and I hate myself every single day." Caleb stood perfectly still. His face was cold and hard like stone. He already knew this truth. "I know you did it, Damon," Caleb said in a deep, flat voice. "You were scared of your gambling debts. You are a weak coward." Damon looked up, tears pouring down his face. He shook his head violently. "No, Caleb. You don't understand the real, terrifying truth." Damon wiped his nose with a shaking hand. "The gambling debt was real," Damon whispered, his voice cracking with fear. "But I did not buy the poison pill. I did not want to hurt you. Someone else forced me to drop it in your bottle. Someone very powerful and dangerous." Caleb narrowed his eyes. "Who gave you the poison?" he demanded angrily. Damon took a deep, shaking breath. The terrible secret was finally coming out. "It was the head coach, Caleb. It was your own father. He gave me the pill and ordered me to do it." Caleb felt the room spin wildly. His brain could not process the horrible words. "You're lying," Caleb shouted, grabbing Damon by his shirt. But Damon cried harder. "I swear it is true. Your father owed the violent betting mob $3 million. They were going to kill him." Damon revealed the darkest, most evil secret. "Your father bet all his money against you, Caleb. He bet everything on me to win that race 3 years ago. He sacrificed his own son to pay his dirty debts and save his own life. He planned the entire nightmare." The final pieces of the puzzle fell perfectly into place. "The plastic box of drugs in my closet," Caleb whispered in total shock. "My father planted it there." Damon nodded quickly. "Yes, he framed you perfectly to hide his crime. The man who gave Caleb life had completely destroyed it." Caleb left the motel immediately. The warm night air felt freezing cold against his skin. His entire world was shattered into broken, ugly pieces. He drove straight to the Grand Olympic Training Center. He walked past the security guards and kicked open the heavy wooden door of the head coach's office. His father was sitting behind a large, expensive desk, drinking a glass of dark whiskey. When he saw Caleb's furious face, the glass slipped from his hand and shattered loudly on the floor. The famous coach suddenly looked very old and incredibly small in his large leather chair. Caleb did not yell. He walked slowly to the desk and leaned over it. "Damon told me everything," Caleb whispered. His voice was dangerously quiet. "You poisoned your own son. You threw me into hell to pay your dirty gambling debts." His father began to shake uncontrollably with pure terror. The proud coach did not try to deny it. He instantly fell to his knees on the glass-covered floor. He cried pathetic, ugly tears. "Please forgive me, Caleb," his father begged loudly. "They were going to murder me. I had absolutely no choice. I had to survive." "A real father dies for his son," Caleb said coldly, feeling absolutely nothing for the pathetic man on the floor. His father crawled forward and grabbed Caleb's heavy work boots. "Please, Caleb, you have to listen to me. You must lose the final race tomorrow. You have to run slowly." Caleb frowned in disgust. "Why?" he demanded. His father looked up with desperate, greedy eyes. "Because the mob bet $20 million on Damon to win tomorrow. And I bet all my savings on him, too. If you win, the mob will definitely kill me this time." I am dead. The terrible truth hit Caleb again. His father was not just a coward. He was an evil, greedy monster. Even after ruining Caleb's life, the old man was still betting against his own blood to get richer. The last tiny piece of love in Caleb's heart died completely in that dark room. Caleb pulled his boot away from his father's shaking hands. His eyes turned into cold, dark ice. You want me to lose to save your miserable life? Caleb asked softly. His father nodded wildly, hoping for mercy. Caleb smiled a very slow, terrifying smile. I am going to run tomorrow, old man, Caleb promised quietly. I am going to run faster than any human in history. I am not running to win a gold medal anymore. I am running to send you straight to hell. Caleb turned and walked away into the dark night. The grand final arrived with a massive, roaring crowd. The entire nation was watching the historic race on live television. Caleb stood on the track, wearing his heavy boots. The stadium lights shined brightly on the runners. Damon stood in the next lane, sweating heavily and breathing very fast. Damon had a dangerous, hidden secret today. He had injected his body with a brand new, experimental doping drug. It was completely undetectable by modern science. The dangerous chemical forced his heart to beat at a superhuman speed. It gave him explosive energy, but it was a massive risk to his life. The runners took their final positions on the starting blocks. The referee raised the gun. Silence fell over the giant stadium. The starting gun cracked loudly. Damon exploded forward with terrifying, chemical speed. He was moving faster than he ever had in his entire career. But Caleb was right beside him. At the 50-meter mark, Damon realized the new drugs were not enough. Caleb's brutal, heavy strides were slowly pushing him into the lead. Panic filled Damon's dark heart. He remembered the violent threats from the mob. He made a quick, dirty, and desperate decision to save himself. Damon purposely moved out of his own lane. He swung his leg wildly and stomped his heavy track shoe directly onto the back of Caleb's heel. The sharp, metal spikes on Damon's shoe tore deeply into the thick leather of Caleb's heavy work boot. The violent impact was sudden and massive. Caleb stumbled slightly, losing his balance for a dangerous second. The sharp spikes completely destroyed the back of his right boot. The heavy leather tore apart, and the broken shoe flew off his foot, bouncing across the red track. Damon sprinted ahead, thinking he had finally won the dirty war. A normal runner would stop immediately and cry to the referee. But Caleb was forged in pain and brutal suffering. He did not slow down or complain. While running at full speed, Caleb used his bare right foot to kick the left boot completely off his other leg. Caleb was now running completely barefoot on the burning, rough synthetic track. The harsh surface instantly cut the bottom of his feet, peeling away the skin. Drops of bright red blood began to stain the track with every heavy step. But the sudden loss of the heavy boots made him incredibly light. The crowd screamed in absolute shock and horror. They were watching a man endure terrible pain. Caleb ignored the bleeding. The pain in his feet was nothing compared to the deep pain of his father's betrayal. He fixed his angry eyes on Damon's back and unleashed his ultimate, terrifying speed. They reached the final, brutal curve of the 400-meter race. Damon was still holding the lead, but his body was screaming in absolute agony. The experimental doping drug was pushing his heart too far. His chest felt like it was trapped inside a tight, burning cage of sharp iron. Damon's vision started to blur with dark, ugly spots. His lungs begged for air, but the chemical poison forced his muscles to keep working beyond their natural limit. He heard a terrifying sound coming from right behind him. It was the heavy, wet slapping sound of bare, bleeding feet hitting the track. Caleb was coming. The barefoot monster was closing the gap with every single, violent stride. He ignored the blood streaming from his torn skin. He ran with the brutal, unstoppable force of a giant swinging a heavy sledgehammer. His form was ugly, angry, and absolutely perfect. As they entered the final straight line to the finish, Caleb pulled up right beside Damon. Damon looked over with wide, terrified eyes. He saw a man who did not feel pain anymore. He saw a survivor who had crawled out of the dark hell that Damon had helped create. Caleb's face was perfectly calm, like cold, hard stone. Damon tried to push his body faster, but his poisoned heart finally began to fail. A sharp, terrible pain shot down Damon's left arm. His legs suddenly felt weak and completely disconnected from his brain. The chemical fire inside him was dying out. Caleb accelerated again, finding a hidden gear of impossible speed. He left the dying champion behind in the dust. Every bloody footprint Caleb left on the red track was a heavy stamp of pure justice. He was running for the 3 years of stolen time and the nights carrying heavy steel. The crowd was screaming so loudly the stadium actually shook. Caleb crossed the bright white finish line like a speeding bullet. He did not raise his arms to celebrate. He simply ran straight through the line, his chest cutting the thin finish ribbon into pieces. The giant digital clock flashed the final time in bright yellow numbers. The entire stadium gasped in absolute disbelief. Caleb had not just won the race barefoot. He had completely destroyed the national record by 2 full seconds. In the sprinting world, it was a totally impossible, godlike achievement. The bloody footprints on the track told a story of impossible survival. Caleb slowed down and walked calmly toward the grassy field. He had proven his innocence to the world without speaking a single word. His brutal, silent victory was the loudest revenge the sport had ever seen. 10 meters behind the finish line, Damon's poisoned body finally gave up completely. He collapsed violently onto the hard track, rolling over in extreme pain. White foam began to pour from his shaking mouth. His heart was failing rapidly from the illegal, experimental drugs he had secretly injected. The emergency medical team rushed onto the track with a stretcher. In the chaotic panic, a young nurse accidentally kicked Damon's personal sports bag. The zipper broke open violently. Several hidden glass syringes and empty vials of illegal doping chemicals rolled out onto the bright red track for everyone to see. High above the track, multiple television cameras instantly zoomed in on the illegal needles. The dark, shameful truth of the Golden Champion was broadcast live to millions of shocked viewers around the world. Damon's fake, glorious career was completely destroyed in a single, humiliating moment of undeniable truth. High up in the expensive VIP seats, a group of quiet men in dark suits stood up slowly. They were the violent mobsters from the illegal betting world. They had just lost $20 million. The leader pulled out a small black phone, dialed a quick number, and gave a very cold, silent nod. Down on the field, the head coach was panicking wildly. Caleb's father knew the dangerous men were coming for his life. In a desperate, pathetic attempt to save himself, he ran onto the track toward Caleb. He opened his arms wide, pretending to be a proud, loving father for the flashing cameras. "My son, I am so proud of you," his father yelled, trying to hug him and share the bright spotlight. Caleb did not slow down. He did not blink. He walked straight past the crying old man, moving right through him like he was just a cold, invisible ghost in the wind. The father fell to his knees on the grass, crying in total, absolute defeat. The mobsters would find him soon, and there was nowhere left to hide. Caleb walked calmly toward the stands. Old Hank, the rough construction foreman, was standing near the fence with a huge, proud smile on his dirty face. The race officials nervously handed Caleb the shiny gold medal. Caleb did not put it around his own neck. He walked up to the fence and placed the heavy gold medal directly into Hank's rough, calloused hands. "Thank you for building the track with me," Caleb whispered quietly to his true sponsor. Caleb turned his back on the screaming reporters, the flashing cameras, and the corrupted, broken world of professional sports. He walked slowly out of the massive stadium, leaving a long trail of bloody footprints on the floor. He was barefoot, exhausted, and finally completely free.